And Marie Curie, Madame Curie, would agree about being independent in thought. It's an important part of education, something we should develop. She, Einstein, others agreed. Montessori. Einstein rejected authority. Marie Curie, in her own way, being curious, she'd naturally do it, maybe not even have to kind of like rebel, kind of without rebellion. As she says, I'll put a link to some of these quotes. I'll try to track them down. I'll just assume that's true. It kind of makes sense from her. Quote, I tried various experiments described in treatises on physics and chemistry, and the results were sometimes unexpected. At times, I would be encouraged by a little unhoped-for success. At others, I would be in the deepest despair because of accidents and failures resulting from my inexperience, unquote, Marie Curie, amen. She was not satisfied with reading books for going from authority. She was like Einstein. He rebelled, he hated authority. So in some of his letters, some of his actions when he was young, what he said, some things when he was older, quote, to me, the worst thing seems to be a school principally to work with methods of fear, force, and artificial authority. Such treatment destroys the sound sentiments, the sincerity, and the self-confidence of pupils and produces a subservient subject, unquote. No wonder, like, Germany at the time became Germany with such things being done. And again, think about, is that what we want? Some will say, yeah, but I think most of us are like, hell no. Einstein, quote, unthinking respect for authority is the greatest enemy of truth, unquote. But that's been translated in kind of some different ways. There's also, quote, blind belief in authority is the greatest enemy of truth, unquote. I forget which is the one that is closest to what he actually meant. I think it's more like the unthinking respect for authority is the greatest enemy of truth. And that's what we should not be trained in. It does not make a Marie Curie to be blindly following authority, or an Einstein. We need people, we should have every individual capable of living in the world with the world and knowing things on their own. That's how we should train them, not to follow blind authority. Marie Curie was out there being independent, learning things on her own, and these kind of things helped her in later life. If she didn't have the deep despair of failure at different times, would she have discovered radioactivity? Not, because that was hellacious and took a long time and took a lot of failures and took a lot of effort to go through all this process of concentrating some little chemical and testing it and all this stuff. That took a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of patience, a lot of being willing to deal with failures and accidents and go through the despair of it. Same thing with Kepler. To identify that planets go in elliptical orbits, he had to reject the authority of everyone who said things go in circles and identify the facts and be the one saying they go in ellipses. This is the truth. I stick to it. I commit to it independently. If he was trained in authority or just read books and stuff and was not trained to be committed to the evidence of the senses, as Galileo and Aristotle, we wouldn't have it. A lot of modern science wouldn't have been started. Newton couldn't have done all he did. But he took, 6 or 10 years to figure out the planets go in elliptical orbits? He knew that Mars was off a little bit from a circle. The facts and the alleged theory were not consistent. He knew, as Aristotle, as Galileo, all human reasoning must be placed second to direct experience. Theory, bad, stick to experience. That's what we got to form concepts from. and make generalizations from, look at cause-effect relationships, figure things out, stick to that across the board. Looking at that, he tried a bunch of different things, did these long, recursive calculations a lot of people would have given up on, all this stuff by hand, no calculators, no computers. Spent a lot of time digging through it, finally figuring out and having, like he said, he felt like he awoke from a dream when he figured out that it was an ellipse. Then it seemed obvious to him. Wasn't a egg shape, wasn't some kind of oval, wasn't a circle, it was an ellipse. He did things on his own like that, stuck to things. That's what Marie Curie had to do. She was learning that when she was young, doing these experiments for a reason, learning things out, failing, not doing a bunch of things and getting them all right and getting a pat on the head. They had to be able to deal with failure with long-term effort, to deal with, go through life, live a good life. That's what we should do. Or, as Thomas Edison said, and it's just because he lived back then doesn't mean this is not true anymore. Quote, "The present system does not give elasticity to the mind. It casts the brain into a mold. It insists that the child must accept. It does not encourage original thought or reasoning, and it lays more stress on memory than on observation. The result of accepting unrelated facts is the fostering of conservatism," unquote, like he means conservatism and thinking. Quote, "It breeds fear, and from fear comes ignorance," unquote. So, that's like what Einstein said and what Marie Curie did. And they had a good attitude. It should be positive. Loving the world. You observe independently, then you're in contact with the world, then you love it, then you understand it, then you learn how to get rid of fears you might have. One reason we have a problem nowadays is because people don't know methods for getting out of fear, for figuring out the world, just following authority or whatever. They should learn how to dig into things, to understand them, to know, to find cause-effect relationships, to see what's really there, and have the patience to do so. As Tom Brown says, for too many people, and this is in modern times, through human history, some of the ugliness of it, quote, "What we don't understand, we fear. What we fear, we hate. What we hate, we seek to destroy," unquote. And some other people have said something similar. But, put a note here, put that quote in the description field later. But we should be trained to be like these others, to respect truth, to be good with it, to know how to figure it out. So when we don't understand something, we don't hate or seek to destroy. We should be curious and dig in and understand it. It should be like what Marie Curie and Isaac Newton said and how they experienced things. Marie Curie, quote, "All my life through, the new sights of nature made me rejoice like a child," unquote. It's like what Newton said, quote, "To myself, I am only a child playing on the beach, while vast oceans of truth lie undiscovered before me," unquote. A child playing on the beach, that's got feeling to it, emotion, a love of the world, being in it, learning. Because when a child's playing, it's more than just playing. They're immersed in reality and they're discovering it. That's what playing at the beach means. You're not just like playing dolls, You're immersed in the world and digging in sand and feeling it. You got all this total experience going on. Marie Curie, quote, "If I see anything vital around me, it is precisely that spirit of adventure which seems indestructible and is akin to curiosity," unquote. And it gives you that total awareness, that kind of being lost in the moment kind of thing. So immersed in reality, you got the detail and the whole, yourself in the whole at one time. You're totally aware. She says, quote, Marie Curie again, "Unknown in Paris, I was lost in the great city, but the feeling of living there alone, taking care of myself without any aid, did not at all depress me. If sometimes I felt lonesome, my usual state of mind was one of calm and great moral satisfaction, unquote, like a kid at the beach, playing, not alone, fully enjoying the moment and immersed in it. Does not take away from being social. That's one thing. They were both like Marie Curie, more so. I guess Newton. I don't know about him. People say some stuff. I don't know if it's true or if they're just talking smack. But, Marie Curie was married. Did stuff socially. I don't know to what extent. So much to learn, so little time. But we need that independence of thought to help people be committed to the world, to maintain that state we have when we're young, when we're playing in the world or with other people also, where we're all individually immersed in the world and enjoying it like a child. Just having that total joy and be social. We should maintain that in education. And that independence goes beyond merely physics. We need independence for our moral judgment, to know what we're doing, what and why. It extends to there. As Einstein says, when we know why and not just blindly follow authority, quote, concepts that have proven useful in ordering things easily achieve such authority over us that we forget the earthly origins and accept them as unalterable givens, unquote. We should remember what the meaning is of some things. Maintain our contact with reality. That's one thing we need to do as teachers. Just because we know something doesn't mean a student does. That's what it seems like too many do. It's a mistake we can easily fall into. Something seems obvious because we know it so well, but we have to unpack it and go back to the student and what they're like and where they're coming from and how they're going from the evidence of the senses to this advanced knowledge, and make sure we build that up so they know independently and not just memorize something we know as if using the words means that they know also. And that's some things that we've done to some extent too, so you might think it's the way it's done, but it's been mistaken because there's a lot of ideas out there. Just because we got, like, we were sitting at a desk or we did stuff on tests and we went through this so-called process of education or schooling doesn't mean we actually understand things. There's a lot of bad philosophies out there. Dig into philosophy, look and see what it's about. Look at history. See different educational systems and if they actually teach people to think and be real and be human and be reasonable and logical. See what their effects are. What produced a Marie Curie? What produced a Sappho? What produced a Hypatia and a Bruce Lee and an Einstein or a Thomas Edison? We need to get those things. So even though we can't all be an Einstein or a Marie Curie, that intelligent, but we can all be in our own way to whatever extent we can. People have different degrees and amounts they like being like independent versus social. We all have that, but we're all independent, self-sovereign social animals, whether we like it or not. We got both. We all want to belong to a group, but we also say, don't tell me what to do. We got to make decisions for ourselves and think. We should dig into both those aspects. And then the measure of one, how much one does one another, of course, is going to vary with individuals, but we all have those things we need to develop. And then when we got that self-sovereign down, the independence, again, we can be better social animals. You can bring more to bear in being social. Live a better life. We need to help people, produce people who are more into things and love life and immersed in the world, whatever that may be, and not just be empty-headed nobodies. And doing some of this stuff, Redounds upon everything, teaching people to think and be independent. Quote, Einstein, quote, "The most important human endeavor is the striving for morality in our actions. Our inner balance and even our very existence depend on it. Only morality in our actions can give beauty and dignity to life. To make this a living force and bring it to clear consciousness is perhaps the foremost task of education. The foundation of morality should not be made dependent on myth or tied to any authority, lest doubt about the myth or about the legitimacy of the authority imperil the foundation of sound judgment and action." Unquote. Amen. Let's take that to heart. Remember that. Remember where Einstein came from. Remember what he got out of. Remember what he was thinking about. And let's help students get the independent thought, the reasoning, so they can have that inner balance, make good decisions, know what they're doing, be moral, and be wise. Thanks.